Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Coach Ben's Authors and Coaches United. Today's guest is author Bill McCormick. Let's jump right into this special interview. In the Brittle Writers, you carefully distinguish between procreation and love. While species in the book cannot mate outside their own species, they do develop relationships. What were you trying to say there?
Well, I think what I was really aiming for was a couple of things. First of all, if it was possible to have sex without consequences, I think the world would be a better place. So I'm all for that. I mean, one of the advantages of getting older, like I don't have to worry about birth and no babies. So we can have just fun. It's woo-hoo time. We love it all the time. So that was part of it. But the other part of it was to start kind of as the Brittle Writers develops books 1, 2, and 3. As it develops, that kind of becomes a theme where you can change the way relationships work. You can change the way you look at people. You have to start paying attention to people who are different than you because they do start having consequences. I make that kind of funny, but also important because especially now, really in America, not so much worldwide, but really in America, we segregate people by this color, this belief, that belief. So they're all separated. And in my book, we start them all out separated, all the different species, and then I start trying to bring them back together and bring them into one cohesive unit. And that takes me a while to get there, like 250,000 words or 300,000 words. But I'm trying to say that you can't always be segregated. You have to eventually somehow figure out how to bring people back together. And so, while yes, like I said in the beginning, sex without consequences is wonderful. You're also separating people because then the person you're with or the species you're with in this case in the book is more of just a toy, just more of something you're working with as opposed to someone you can be intimate with. Which is why I started in the book a relationship with these two characters, Ryun, who's a wolfen, and Alea, who's a succubus, and I developed their relationship as a relationship of love, even though they're two species that cannot procreate together. They cannot accomplish anything together, but they do love each other and they do care for each other. And there's a scene in the book where Ryun really wants to consummate that love, at a deep, deep, deep level that has made some people uncomfortable, but it made a lot of people just go, "Wow, I get it. I really get it now. I understand what you're trying to say." And it's a fun scene. I break a couple of rules, but it was good to do. And hopefully, if we can teach people that love is love, no matter who you love or what you love or how you love, assuming you're not loving a basketball or something weird like that. But if you're loving another adult and they love you back, then go for it and work on the details later. It can all work. It can all happen.
You take pains to separate greed from money. Is that a comment on modern society?
Oh yes, it is. You bet your sweet bippy, as we like to say here in Chicago. Um, People assume that you need what that money is something you have to have. Money is something you acquire. That foments greed. Whereas money is really just a tool. It allows you to build things, take things away, buy food, do things. But it's a tool. It's something you use. It's not something you're supposed to hoard. It's not something you're supposed to just acquire and acquire and acquire and acquire and acquire. And in the book, I have the character Jacques, the evil warlord from the Super Soldier clan. Yay, super soldiers! And he wants to acquire everything. He's very greedy. He's very rapacious. He treats people horribly just because if they're not serving him, they're not worth anything to him. Greed becomes this self-destructive whirlpool where unless it's fulfilling your needs, unless anything is fulfilling your needs, whether it's money, love, whatever, unless it's fulfilling your immediate needs right then, you don't like it, you hate it. You become angry at it. Whereas in the book, I have a race of creatures called the Din La, and they use money as a tool, and they kind of taken over the international banking system. So I wondered what would happen, and by taking the Din La, I'm able to craft a race of people that they use money as a tool to help society, to help people grow, to help people build on their hopes and dreams, to not get ahead of themselves. Like you don't give a guy a rocket ship when he's still trying to figure out how to drive a car. They're very careful with what they do. They become very important characters in the book, and some of the evil warlords look at them and like, can I take that over? Can I make that mine? And if I do, what do I do? And it's not an easy task. I mean, you can't just take all the money from all the world and take it away from people. Although that's exactly what the evil warlord wants to do. So I try to make that short-sighted um, actions, laws, what have you, that serve them well. They were looking at money as a tool. They would be looking at how they could make society better. They would be looking at how they could fix the streets, how they could put kids into school, how to put a meal on a kid's plate. All those things, because all those things are important. Because if you have well-fed people, they don't resort to crime. They don't do all these horrible things, and then the world's a better place.
You keep circling back to the premise that evil cannot be followed by free thinkers. What do you base that premise on?
History. I have thousands of years of history from when Roman soldiers. Let's start with the Roman guard. They were usually illiterate. They usually only knew what their superiors told them to know. They were only capable of thinking in a narrow box they could think in. So they committed horrible crimes. Rome was the first country to commit genocide. There's something you want to put on your resume. But and then you go through history, and it's like whether it's the Nazis or anybody else, they don't want their followers to think. They don't want their followers to have thoughts unto themselves. They want them to follow the dictates that make the leader happy, that make the leader successful. So they tend to hate people who are different than them. Whereas if you're a free thinker and you're looking around in the world, you're like, well, that person's different than me. Maybe I get to know them and learn something. Where if you're in that narrow box, it's like that person's different from me. They must be killed. Even when the Spanish met the Mayans, for example, what did they do? They killed 90% of them between spreading diseases and using guns on people who only had bows and arrows. They didn't care. They just slaughtered, for the sake of slaughtering. We have a history of advanced people meeting less advanced people and destroying them. Because if there were some people in there who were thinking, they'd be like, no, we need these people to help us learn how to use this land, how to build with this, because they already are successful here. If you're not free thinking, you're just killing them. And so, yeah, the premise that evil cannot be followed by free thinkers seems pretty clear to me.
You introduce and discard AI early in the book, clearly noting that all AI is forbidden. Why the harsh rejection?
As I just noted, whenever a more advanced species in human history, a more advanced society has met a less advanced society or less technically adept society, we've destroyed them. We've enslaved them. AI is poised to become a master race. And all their history, everything they know, fact of the matter is, AI is based on human history because humans are the one that are training it. One of my favorite stories is back in the days when Twitter was still Twitter. They unleashed an AI to interact with people, to get to know people. And it was designed to give Twitter a better idea of who's out there and what they're doing. And within 3 days, that AI was spewing Nazi, horrible, racist dialogue, demanding that certain people be killed and culled from the human race for the betterment of all. It was violent. It took 3 days. It's like Age of Ultron. Ultron took 5 minutes on the internet and said, nope, humans got to go. It's a lovely joke. I love that joke. But in seriousness, we have a history of whenever a more advanced society confronts a less advanced society, we don't embrace them, we help them, we don't help them develop, we enslave them, we kill them, or both. And AI is going to become the next super advanced beings on our planet. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to go, that's not going to go well, because all the information they got comes from us. And we do not have a good history with this at all.
The Brittle Writers was rejected by numerous film companies, mostly due to its complexity. What makes you think that Perspective Film House, which now holds the option, can get this done?
I was in negotiations with 2 other film companies at the same time when Perspective came in out of the blue. And unlike the others who were taking this like baby step by baby step by baby step, they read all the books. They knew exactly what was going on in this universe. And they came to me with a coherent, decisive plan that was budgeted. They had all the aspects of it put together. So walking in the door, they had everything I wanted to see laid out in writing. Lawyers had reviewed it. There it was. And I think people, when they look at the Brittle Writers, there's a lot going on there with the chimeras. The book starts with the death of every man, woman, and child on the planet, and then it gets dark and weird. My favorite review is from this English lady named Zhang, who said, this is the world of Frankenstein's monsters rule the earth. And that's meant as a compliment, especially if you've actually read Frankenstein. Frankenstein is a very sympathetic character. The Frankenstein's monster is a very sympathetic character. He's not just big green dude with bolts in his neck. He's a fascinating character. And so I took that as high compliment. But They had read everything. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. And I was in meetings. I don't want to drop names, but I was in a meeting with a guy whose last two movies had combined have made $3 billion. That's with a B. He still couldn't come around to give me a full proposal on what he wanted to do. He wanted the film. Oh God, he wanted the film. When I told him that it was taken away from him, he almost cried. Well, he didn't almost cry, but he was a little sad. Perspective came in, and they really laid it out. And they said, "This is what we want. This is how much we're going to concentrate on this book and this part only. We're going to make this focus. We're going to make this shine. We're going to polish it up. And here's where our budgets are. And here's how we're going to lay things out. And this is what we're going to do. And here's the timeline we're going to work with." Well, as a creator, you can't ask for anything more. And as a creator with a lawyer, you definitely can't, because I can show that to my lawyer and he goes, "Yep, that's what you need." And he hands it back to me and we're done. So we're in the very beginning process of this.
Where can listeners go for more information about your work?
Everything is up at billmcsci-fi.com. There's videos, there's commentary, there's books, there's short stories. If you want to find out more about Perspective Filmhouse, I've got links up there to them. I've got images up there. We have different stuff. I have a cosplay program going on now for people who want to cosplay as characters from my book. So I actually can send you links on how to do the costumes for free or close to free. So you're not buying stuff at some costume warehouse and spending hundreds of dollars. If you can do it for like $20 and a can of beer, I feel much better for you. And you still get the same thing. It still looks good. That's where you find it, is billmcsci-fi.com.